Hi again, everybody. Welcome back to the Columbus School of Chinese here in Columbus, Ohio. My name is Donald Newman, and this is Ask a Chinese Teacher. Today, we're going to get even more down into the nitty-gritty of the third tone. Now, the third tone, as we've mentioned multiple times before, is the one that dips. And you might be able to see in that chart behind me, it's the one that goes down and back up again. It's the only tone that changes direction. And as you might have seen in previous episodes, it's the one that has some special rules when it's paired with other tones, right? So we're going to get into some special rules for that today. So what do I mean when I say that a tone dips? Well, it gets really exaggerated when we're learning third tones for the first time, when a teacher demonstrates for us what a third tone sounds like. 好,晚,美, right? You can really hear it kind of going down a little bit, bottoming out, and coming back up again. But really, it only sounds like that when we're taking one syllable at a time, when we're just taking that one third tone. In the real world, when a third tone is paired with other things or it finds itself in a sentence of many other syllables going on, the way that the third tone is produced is different. Again, as we mentioned previously, when a third tone comes before a first tone, a second tone, or a fourth tone, it gets produced kind of cut off in the middle. A lot of teachers call it the half third tone. I've previously described it as a tone that just starts low and stays there. It has to be lower than the next tone. And then I explained previously that when there are two third tones in a row, the first one actually morphs into a second tone. So you're never going to have two true third tones right next to each other. Which brings me to a natural question you guys are probably already asking yourselves. What happens when there are three third tones back to back to back? It's actually a really tricky question, and we're going to get into that today. So can this really happen when there's three third tones right next to each other? It actually can and does very frequently. The first example I can think of is in a situation like this, with a phone number, right? So we have these three fives right next to each other. You know that the number 5 in Mandarin is W-U, third tone. What happens when we have a long serial number of digits that are third tone right next to each other? So in this scenario, the rule here is everything is based on the last syllable. So that last syllable is going to be our true third tone. Everything else before it is going to turn into a second tone. So we have second tone, third tone. So we have that third tone at the very end. Everything before it is getting changed to a second tone. Okay, so that's a little bit tricky to deal with, but that's how we deal with third tones back to back to back in a serial number. It gets even trickier here because just out in the real world when we're speaking sentences, how you deal with three third tones next to each other depends on the connection the words have with each other. So this demands kind of more of a background knowledge about what the words mean, what the words are doing together. Let's take a look at this example here to see what I mean. So the first examples we're going to take a look at is the AAB structure. This just means that the two first ones, the A, they have more of a connection than does B. What do I mean by connection? Well, think of it this way. We have the word 演讲稿. 演讲稿. Together, this means a copy of your speech, or like a speech printed out. But what do these words mean individually? You can think of 稿 as the actual piece of paper with the speech printed out. It's kind of like what I have here for my video today. This is my 稿. 演讲 is more commonly thought of as a single word by itself. 演讲 means a speech or what you're going to say. So you can think of 演讲 as a word and 稿 as a word. And we're putting them together to form the word, the printed out version of your speech or script a speech script, 演讲稿. So 演讲 has more of a connection than 稿. What happens when this takes place? Well, this will be read as 演讲稿, second tone, third tone. The only third tone that remains a third tone is 稿. All right, moving on, as you might guess, this is what happens when the last two syllables have more of a connection than does the first and the second syllable. So we refer to this as the A-B-B structure. The two B's have more of a connection, or are usually considered more so as a word unto themselves, and the first syllable is kind of something else that goes along with it. Okay, so for example here we have this 好领导. 好领导. I'm already pronouncing it with the correct pattern. So if you could hear how I'm saying that, 好 remains a third tone, 领 turns into a second, 导 stays a third tone. Why is this? How is 领导 more connected than 好领? You might know 领导 is a word referring to a leader. Right? So 领导 you can think of as a word unto itself. 好 means good. So this is kind of like a description for what kind of 领导. 好领导. All right. So we would not say this as 好领导. That doesn't make sense. It's kind of like we're giving more of a semantic connection between the 好 and the 领than there should be. We want to make sure the listener can hear that this 领导, we want to say 领导 as its own word, its own piece unto itself. 好 is something we're adding onto it to describe 领导. Okay, so there is my summary of how to deal with 3 third tones back to back to back. Again, I recognize and agree that it's tricky because it requires previous knowledge of what are words together and what is just simply something next to that word in the sentence. So give yourself some time. It's something that takes lots and lots of exposure to native people using the language around you to get perfectly. And even then, everybody makes mistakes.